in Mesechta Megillah, Daf Chaf Ches Amid Aleph 28a. We went through 4 different great rabbis and what they did in order to live a long life. So currently at this point, we are going through Reb Nechunya ben Hakana. Yesterday we discussed Reb Nechunya ben Hakana. We saw where he's buried. He's the author of Ana B'Chayach. And he said there are 3 things in which merit he was merited to have a long life. One is he never let himself get honored at the expense of his fellow. Second thing was that he never went to sleep at night upset at anyone, which I think that's also, everyone could sort of agree to that. Going to sleep upset or in a bad mood, stress in your head is also a reason why someone could shorten their years. And the third thing was Vatram b'mamayni hayisa. He was never, he was always very generous, open-handed with his money. Shalom Aleichem, Mr. McDoodle, Shalom Aleichem, Yassi. So he was always. We do have it downstairs. He's always very open-handed with his money. So Vatrim b'manahisi, he always used to, he never was stingy on his money. The Gemara will give now 3 examples for each case. First one, I never let myself get honored at the expense of my fellow. And he gives an example. Kiha did Rav Huna dare mara akaspe. For example, Rav Huna was one time coming back from work. Rav Huna was very poor. It was brought, we see it in other places. And he was coming back to his home, and he had a spade on his shoulder. Asa Rav Chana bar Chanilai. Rav Chana bar Chanilai came and tried to carry it for him, because he says a great Rav Huna should carry a spade on his shoulder. Amar Lei told him, "Iriglas the daris b'masech dari." He told back to Rav Chana bar Chanilai, if in your own place where you live, your own city, you would carry a spade, then you can help me carry a spade as well. V'loi, however, if not, in order to honor me, I should be dishonoring you, that you should be the one to carry my spade. That I don't want to do. So he would never let himself get honored at someone else's expense. The story of, I think it was the Chaim, and it was Chaim Oizer. I'm not sure the second one was. They came to a town together, and in the city where they arrived, there's a very large crowd, very large throng came to greet them. And as they would sometimes do when very great Rabbanim, great rabbis would come, they unhitched the horses from the wagon that was carrying them, and the people of the city started dragging themselves, pulling the wagon throughout the city. And there were doors on both sides of this wagon. Chaim says to himself, they must be coming to honor Chaim Oizer. Let me go and join them. And he went out from his side of the wagon. And Chaim Oizer said to himself, they must be coming to honor the Chafetz Chaim. And he went out from his side of the wagon. And people didn't notice that they were pulling the wagon together. When they finally came and they opened up the doors, there's nobody inside. So he would never let himself be honored at somebody else's expense. And someone else should be considered to be helping me. So he says, if it's in your city, you would do this, that's fine. But otherwise, I do not let it happen over here. There's several weeks ago in my story of the weekly stories of the Rebbe, there was a certain person who learned in yeshiva in Lubavitch, later on moved to America in the 1920s. And he was not a Lubavitcher per se, but he was a handyman. He used to do construction. And so one time when they were in 1959, they were building 770, they were expanding or fixing something. And so this worker man is carrying his long 2x4, a long piece of wood. And he realized someone's helping him. And he turns around. Sorry, it was paint cans. He was carrying the paint cans. Mm-hmm. And he realizes somebody's helping him carry this barrel of paint. And he realizes the Rebbe was helping him carry. He says, no, it's not for you. And the Rebbe says, when do I ever get the opportunity to do the mitzvah of azav tazav, to help another Jew carry something? Mm-hmm. Now I have the mitzvah, please don't take it away from me.
Somebody came into the mother's house and we found him under the sink fixing the pipes.
Really? Interesting.
And so they asked him, you can get a call. I should give away the schus of fixing my mother's pipes to a plumber.
Mm-hmm. So that is the first thing. What does it mean? I never went to sleep. I never allowed resentment towards my fellow to accompany me when I went to bed. For example, like Mar Zutra would do, he have a salik leporye, he would climb up to his bed to go to sleep. Amar, he would say, Shadi leilachalman detzaran. I forgive anybody who has aggravated me. So Rebbe Nechunya ben Akana would do that every single night. And that's why the custom, the minhag is many people say, at night they say, Harini Mochel. I forgive everyone who did this. Harini Mochel. There's a story of Mendel Futterfass. Mendel Futterfass, I'm sure you're all familiar with him. Great chassid. He sat in Siberia for several years. He was freed. He was the Rebbe sent him to be mashpia in Eretz Yisrael. And when he first, so he left Russia. It was Tashkent Chavdal in 1964. He was able to leave Russia. Tashkent Lamed Hey, 1975. That's when the Rebbe sent him to be mashpia in Eretz Yisrael. Till then, he lived in London and he was actually in business. So he's a businessman, but he was in business. That's what he did in Russia as well. So when he moved to Eretz Yisrael, his wife didn't yet move, and I think a few children of his didn't move with him, and he was living by himself in a small little house in Kfar Chabad, where he was a mashpia. So for the first while, I think it was a few months until his wife came. So they would always have one of the yeshiva bachrim and the yeshiva boys would stay in the house together with him. So Mendel Futterfass was always, up in he was in his own room. Nobody knew what he was doing in the house. So one of the bachrim decided to hear, let's see, well, what is he doing? It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And he goes over to the door of Mendel Futterfass's bedroom, and he puts his ear on the door to see, maybe something can happen. And he was able to hear Mendel Futterfass saying, Ribono shel olam, hareini mochel. Behold, I forgive everyone who has offended me and hurt me in anything today. And then he says the words. And then about 10 seconds later, he starts over. Ribono shel olam, hareini mochel. I am forgiving. And for over an hour, Mendel Futterfass is every couple seconds, he goes back and repeats the words. Ribono shel olam, hareini mochel. Now, being a young yeshiva student does not know how to be tactful when you're supposed to ask questions or you're not supposed to ask questions. It's a gift and the detriment of being young. And so the next day he goes over to the Mendel Futterfass and he says, I was listening to you saying Kriya Shema Lamita last night, and I wanted to know this, and you took over an hour. You're saying the same words over. Hareini mochel. And Mendel Futterfass tells him, what are you talking about? He says, no, you can't deny it. I heard it myself. And he says, what, you were in my house? He's like, yeah, I'm the one who's staying in your house last night, and I heard this. And finally he says, okay, so what was it? He asked him to explain. Tell me, why are you saying the same words? This is for over an hour. So he says, I'm thinking to myself, Hareini, I am forgiving. He says, have I learned any chassidus? Have I taken anything to heart? Who am I? I'm such a big mitzias. I'm such a big existence. I'm such an important person that someone could offend me, and therefore I have to go out and say Hareni Moichel, and I think about that. Then and after not realizing who am I, what am I try again, and I have to go over and over and over with it. So this is one of the things that Rebbe Nechunya ben Akana would do, that he never would go to sleep when he was upset at anybody. Now, being careful with a mitzvah, with one mitzvah, if you be careful with it always, that mitzvah says as a malach, it protects you. And there's many examples of people which are careful with a certain mitzvah, whether it's in Tilas Adayim, or other things, which protected them in many situations. So here he's saying that he never went to sleep when he was upset. That was the second thing. The first thing was he never let himself be honored if it would make someone else be dishonored. Second, he would never go to sleep when he's upset. Third one, uvatron b'mamayni hayisi. I was very open-handed with my money. I gave a lot of tzedaka. The Amar Mar, as a master has said, Iyov vatron b'mamayni hayisa. Iyov, famous Iyov, the whole book of Tanakh on Iyov. So Iyov was very liberal, open-handed, giving away his money. So he would always overpay for something. He never wanted to be taking from someone else. So he always overpaid by a penny or a little bit more in order that he should never be taking from someone else. And in that merit, Hashem made him very, very wealthy. In the beginning, he was wealthy, and he was tested by Hashem, lost his wealth, and then he gained it back even twice as much. The Tzedaka Kohen of Lublin, he adds on a vart over here. When a person is very open-handed, very giving with their money, where does that stem from? Because they have no concept of money? Or generally it stems from a very deep emunah, very deep bitachon in Hashem. Like the Zohar says, those who believe strongly in Hashem, Hashem gives them what they need, even more what they need. So if people act in a very, say, small-handed way, so then it could get small in a small way from Hashem. People act in a very expansive way, Hashem will give them what they need. So someone is giving out, it's not just because he likes spending money for no reason, but it can be more than that because he's believing in Hashem. So if it's coming from a good spot, then Hashem will give him a lot. If it's coming from a thing that he wants to show off, how much money he can spend, that's not coming from a good space.
Actually, seems to be he says even as far as logic, if you're actually asking Hashem for something like actually more perfunctorily, so then Hashem says, "Oh, so I'm going to go according to actually judgment, right?" Because in other words, you don't seem to be actually wanting it so much, but if you really ask and you really show big emunah, so then Hashem can also go out of his way, it's actually me to commit naked midah.
You're the Shalah? Familiar with the Shalah?
Oh yeah, he was my cousin.
Your ancestor?
Cousin.
Yeah, I'm actually I descend from the Shalah as well.
Oh well, we're cousins.
I guess we are cousins, probably from more than one way. And so the Shalah, Shenichas Abris, is very right next to the Rambam. What? Shalah Kaddish, right? We say Kaddish about a few people. Or Chaim Kaddish, Shalah Kaddish. So the Shalah writes is actually a tremendous Kabbalistic explanations, deep explanations about this particular thing of Mar Zutra. He says Mar Zutra would not go to sleep till he forgave everybody. He says there's halacha. If someone works for you, you have to pay them on that day or pay them on time. Can't pay them late. Now, if someone did a mitzvah, that means they have to get paid back right away. If they didn't, God forbid, an avera, that means also what they're earning, they should get paid right away. Daytime is when it's light. That's idea of chesed. Sun. Nighttime is idea of din, judgment. It says bois simris chachasiyar. At night, all the wild animals come out in the forest. That's idea of the opposite of din, where there's no judgment. So therefore, every single person has to make sure that you don't miss a single day. Every single day has to be complete. It says, Vayi Erev, Vayi Boker. First came evening, then came morning. Meaning that our avodah, our service in this world to Hashem, is to take the Erev, the time of din, time when it's judgment, time when it's negative in the world, and to make it Boker. First comes the evening, and we, through doing mitzvahs and learning Torah, we make it Boker, we make it into morning. So the Marzutra, at night, when it's a time of judgment, instead of finding a reason to find fault in his fellow, he says, whoever does good to his fellow, Hashem will find a reason to do good to him. Therefore, he always found a way to forgive somebody else at night. Even if that person, some person wants to do teshuvah, if they sinned against their fellow, they're not forgiven until the other person forgives them. If someone wants to change your din, the only way they could do it is if the other person forgives them. Neshama goes up in heaven every night, and Neshama is going to get the new chayas of the next day. And Neshama wants to know, Neshama is going to be judged according to how did he do? How did he act that day? And you don't want to be missing any days. Now, there is one exception. It says, if the Torah says you can't forgive someone, that's an exception to the rule. If the Torah says, for example, if someone insulted you personally, then you could forgive. If someone insulted the Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, then he's not allowed to forgive that person. But for themselves, a person should always go out of the way and as much as possible. And this is something we see that Nechunya ben Akana did, that he always forgave at night, no matter what the person did to him, even if the person was really not nice. And that merit, he outlived everyone else. Shaul Rebbe Kiva Rebbe Nechunya HaGadol. Rebbe Kiva asked Rebbe Nechunya the Great. Okay, so who's Rebbe Nechunya HaGadol? The Mekubal, the one of Kabbalah. Tameh rachta yamim. Which virtue were you merited to have such a long life? Asu gazuze. So Rebbe Nechunya ben Akana's descendants came and they started standing up for their honor of their Zaydi. Not the descendants or the servants. There's two different size. What exactly it means over here. So they went and they started getting upset at Rabbi Akiva. And machu means that they gave him they used to do back then, they disciplined him the way they would discipline back then. They hit him till he left. So Rabbi Akiva had to run away. He escaped. Now you have all the retainers and they're standing up for either their Zaydi or their master's covet. And Rebbe Akiva was obviously, I mean, he must have been younger, maybe had an experience as a shepherd, but he was able to climb up he climbed up a palm tree, which is very hard to climb up.
At this point, I think he was just, Talmud, and she's still learning stuff. He wanted to learn every year, so he asked the question.
Right. Correct. I mean, that's a rashash, he says, because it was a palm tree is very hard to climb up. Now, Rebbe Akiva was obviously no youngster. So the question Rebbe Akiva was asking, why you live such a long life, wasn't just a simple question. Did you eat kale and spinach and go exercise 3 times a week? I don't think he was asking that question. And I'm sure Rebbe Akiva, being who he is, understands why people merit a long life. What he was asking was like this. He says, Rebbe Nechunya ben Akana, you are the tzaddik hadar. You are the greatest person in the generation. And when Hashem wants to punish a generation, instead of punishing the people of the generation, he takes it out sometimes in tzaddikim. And a tzaddik passes away young, and that's mechaper, that atones for the entire generation. So Rebbe Nechunya ben Akana, who's just the greatest person of his time, with everything he had, right? He's a teacher of even the Rashbi. So how come he was never affected by the sins of his generation? How come he's able to live so long, and Hashem is not taking him away to atone for the sins of the generation? So he's asking the question not to be nosy, but he's asking a question because he wanted to learn the halacha. And that's why he climbed up a palm tree. Why? Because a palm tree says many times that tzaddik is compared to a palm tree. And therefore, that's why I climbed dafka up a palm tree, because it says tzaddik hatamar yifrach. Because I see that you're such a tall palm tree, you're a tzaddik, you're a tzaddik who grows like a tamar. Therefore, that's my question. How come you have not been ever taken as a kapara, never passed away as a atonement for the people of the generation? How come the sins of the people of the generation did not affect you? So this is going to be the answer of Nechunya ben Akana, which I never have taken a gift from anybody. What is that? How is that answering Rabbi Akiva's question? If I never took a gift from anybody, therefore I never sort of let myself become open or vulnerable to be if they deserve a punishment, the punishment should be coming onto me. Also, I always forgive everyone. So whoever forgives everyone else, Hashem removes all the sins. And therefore, if I don't get punished, I'm not going to punish for the sins of others as well. Let's read it inside. Amar Le, he told him, Rebbe, he says, Im Nemar, Keves Lavan Nemar Echad. In the daily karbanos, the daily sacrifices, it says, you should make one sheep in the morning as a karban and one sheep at night as a karban. Keves is lashon yachid, it's singular. Echad is one. Im nemar keves, lama nemar echad. How come it says you should bring one sheep in the morning? Why say a singular term two times? Amar Leo, he told them, told them, this person is coming, must be a Talmud Chacham, a Torah scholar. Leave him alone. You don't have to chase him away.
That means what's the great Rabbi Akiva yet?
Correct. It's still Nechunya ben Hakana's times.
Yeah.
So Amar Leo, he told them, when it says you should bring one sheep, it means among the sheep itself, you should choose the one, the best possible sheep that you could find and bring it as a karban. So this is how the Nechunya Kana answered that question. Why specifically? No, to continue with the Ben Ish Chai that we're explaining until now. Right? Why specifically did Rabbi Akiva ask this question, and why with this question did Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana notice that he's a Talmud Chacham? There's so many questions you could ask, especially that in Parshas Tzaveh it says the same pasuk, and instead he explained to him about Parshas Pinchas. And any child could ask this question. So the Noda B'Yehuda answers this question. He says that we bring every single day 2 sheep. And we know that already from Parshas Tzaveh. We repeat this again in Parshas Pinchas. Now, Parshas Pinchas is essentially repeating Parshas Tzaveh to bring a daily karban, once in the morning, once at night. So why is Parshas Tzaveh? His question is, why do we have to repeat it with all the details? We already know in Parshas Pinchas you have to bring Parshas Tzaveh bring the karban. Why in Parshas Tzaveh we were saying you have to do it for all generations? What are we gaining by adding on keves echad? And so he understood that he's asking a deeper question, not just a simple question. Now, it says keves ha'echad is an extra hay. He's also asking, what do you need the extra hay? So he told him, you should have the best one. Amar Le, and he answered him the question, Miyamai, why did I live so long? Look, I never received accepted gifts from anybody. And I was very flexible, meaning I wouldn't try taking revenge on anybody. I always forgave everybody. and I always was very open-handed in giving away money, meaning I never was stingy when it came to paying people for what they did or for anything else. But we have another 15 minutes. We'll learn Emir Hashem. We're going to
pretty much the same. Rabbi Akiva and
Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi ben Akana.
Rabbi Akiva said he never accepted a gift.
The Rabbi Tzvi was
Generous with his money. They both were generous with the money.
No, Rabbi ben Akana was saying the same thing to Rabbi Akiva.
Huh?
He was saying the same thing to Rabbi Akiva that he told the other Talmidim, the other students.
He never accepted on earth.
Here, I have for everyone an English copy. Of the Sefer of the book.
If you turn the page,
If you have the book, you are going to be on page 57. Page 57. Yeah. Page 57.
I've seen this book.
That's a new book. It came out about 2 years ago. Yeah, correct. Yes. Realize that's the wrong. Okay, a new share. I just get the right one on the page. So Veyaddata Yom HaShavos Elovecha. Because you should know today, and you should take it to heart. Yavayahu Elikim. You should know that Hashem is Elikim. Hashemayim mima'al v'al ha'aretz mitachas ein oid. In the heavens above, in the earth below, ein oid, there's nothing but Hashem. If you look over here at the pasuk, at the verse, I don't know if you can see it here on the screen. I hope you can. If you look at the pasuk, it says you should know that Hashem hu Elikim, Hashemayim v'al ha'aretz mitachas ein oid. Here it is. It comes in continuation to saying how when you go into the land of Eretz Yisrael, you're going to realize that everything that happens there is not natural. Everything is supernatural. And what's the point of it? In order that you should know, Ein Oid, there is nothing but Hashem. Meaning, the whole reason we left Mitzrayim, to get the Torah, to go to Eretz Yisrael, to conquer the nations, to live in Eretz Yisrael, is for what purpose? Veyaddata, you should have das, to know Ein Oid, that nothing else but Hashem. This is the entire purpose of man's presence on earth, to train themselves to see that Ein Oid. What I see over here outside or in the street is not the real existence. It's sort of a facade. The real thing is Hashem. And the only thing that exists is Hashem constantly creating the world every single moment. And this is the entire goal of Chassidus, right? To train you to see that, look for the deeper truth that's beyond ourselves. The truth that is hidden in plain sight. This is a major theme of Perek Chavav, chapter 26 of Tanya, and Veyaddata, to know that even things which look on the surface not good are essentially good, very good, in a deeper way. What's the whole idea of Avas Yisrael, chapter Lamed Beis, chapter 32 of Tanya? to look at every Jew, not the way that they act, but look at them because of their neshama. Now, many times, a person has their eyes closed. When they want to, the Rebbe many times would say a sicha, his eyes would be closed. People would ask the Rebbe sometimes, like, why his eyes were closed. The Rebbe would say that people's machshav zaras, people's foreign thoughts that they're thinking, should not disturb him. That's why his eyes were closed. It's a normal thing when the Rebbe would be driving on the way back from the Oyel. The person who was driving always had to be very careful what they were thinking. Says Rabbi Klein, for example, he sometimes drive the Rebbe and he thought about his brother in South Africa. The Rebbe turned to him and says, "How's your brother in South Africa doing?" And then he answered, and then he thought about one of his children who are, in yeshiva. The Rebbe asked, "How's your son in yeshiva doing?" So you have to be very careful. Because someone who's on that level, of course, a Rebbe could obviously feel what everyone is thinking. That's why you have to be careful. Machshava, dibur, ma'aseh. Thought, speech, and action. So whenever you have something which is tremendous kedusha, tremendous holiness, many times eyes are closed. We see this by Yitzchak. When he was by Kedas Yitzchak, the angels cried and the tears went into his eyes and blinded him. By a Jewish wedding, we cover over the eyes of the kala, of the bride. Yitzchak, during the blessings of Yaakov, the Torah mentions that he was blind. When women light Shabbos candles, we cover our eyes. We say Shema. We believe in Hashem. We cover our eyes. Many people have a minhag by Yizkar to do the same thing. By Yizkar, some people have the custom to do it. To close their eyes. What is the idea of closing your eyes? You're closing out the reality around you in order to have a deeper kavanah. The Rebbe tells us we have to open up our eyes and see Mashiach all around us. Meaning, open up our eyes to what's the real existence. The godliness, which is every single thing. With Alter Rebbe, before he passed away, he was asked by the Mittel Rebbe, and he asked him, "What do you see?" He says, "I don't see the beam on top of me. I see the Dvar Avaya, the word of Hashem, which is creating the beam." Right before he passed away, on the highest level of Kedusha, of the holiness of his entire life, that's what he was able to see, only the godliness in the world. So instead of focusing on the external and the peripheral, which is the visual things that could be around us, which is called the garments of our soul, right? Machshava dibur ma'aseh, only what we see on the outside. When you see someone on the outside, you see their garments. You don't see what's really on the inside right away. The Rebbe one time gave a mimer called Vayishlach Yeshua. Yeshua sent the spies into Eretz Yisrael, into Yericho. Yericho is a key of Eretz Yisrael, and explained what it means in the spiritual sense, levushim, the externalities, machshava dibur ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action. About how a person has to be in control of these three things. Now, even if you didn't change your inside, but you're just in control of your actions, what you act, what you speak, and what your thoughts, which a person could be in control of, that itself is sufficient, even if it didn't yet change your inside. Because eventually, that will also affect them on the inside. Right? That's why it's the whole world out there is a massive industry trying to attack your sense of vision, eyes. Because they know what you see can make a tremendous effect on what you think, what you believe, what you feel. So that's why we close our eyes when we want to get to an emissary reality. There was a group of opponents of Hasidim during the times of the Alter Rebbe, and they complained that the Alter Rebbe's Hasidim are all fakers. None of them are real, because they're pretending to do something to be more pious than they actually were. And so some of them, the word got out and came to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe closed his eyes in deep concentration, and he heard this, and he says, if what they're saying is true, may the curse of the Mishnah fall on them. I said, what? What is that? What does that mean? So he says, the Mishnah says, the end of Mesechta, that if a person is not blind or pretends to be blind, they won't pass away until they become blind. Or if a person is able to walk but pretends to be lame, they won't pass away until they are lame. It says when Chassidim are behaving on a higher level spiritually than they actually are, they won't pass away before they reach that level of Yirah Shamayim, of piety of Hashem. So it's a good thing to do things even if you're not holding there yet. Now Hashem created the world, right? We had this. Some of us were about to share this past Shabbos. B'maimer echad. It says Hashem could have created the world with one utterance, one saying, and Hashem created the world with 10 sayings. If Hashem would have created the world with one saying, that's machshava. There's only one Hashem, one God. Everything would be clear. If Hashem would have created the world with only 10 sayings, then you wouldn't have seen godliness. There's too much separation. You created the world in the beginning with one saying on the first day, and later on, every day, with 10 sayings, he put it into, or the next 9 sayings, he put it into the world. Hashem gave us the ability to break through the veil and the concealment of nature. Sort of like a game of hide and seek. Hashem showed us to hide, but he hid in a place where we are able to find and discover Hashem. That's Havaya, infiniteness, the oneness of Hashem. Nature comes from the word Teva. What does the word Teva mean in Hebrew? Tubu b'yamsuf, Egyptians drowned. If something's under the water, it's tubu, it's submerged in the water. Is it still there? Yes, it's still there. You just can't see it. It's covered over. If you open it up, if you take away the concealment, you'll see what it's there. That's the idea of Teva, concealing Hashem. And there's times, as everyone is well aware, times of crisis. So there's no, in the foxhole, how's this thing going?
No atheist
in the foxhole. Right? Times of great difficulty, hardship, a person could believe in Hashem. Suddenly they say, oh, everything's crystal clear to me right now. You have moments of clarity. These are moments when the concealment, covering over the concealments of Hashem, are suddenly revealed, and everyone's able to reach higher. You have at special times of the year, in the Eilah of Yom Kippur. The pasuk Veyaddata hayom, you should know today, isn't telling us just to be reactive, meaning wait till this great inspiration comes to you. Veyaddata means, and you should do it. It's telling you to be proactive, to constantly look for Hashem, even if it seems distant, even if it seems you don't see the hand of Hashem everywhere. Not to wait till you could clearly have to come on to Hashem or you see it in an open, miraculous way, but rather to proactively go out via Daita Yom. You should know today, after the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, and you're settled, still, it's a mitzvah to know that Havaya Elikim, Hashem's almighty power is Elikim, is the nature. So don't judge the book by its cover. So don't focus only on the tree, right? Focus on the whole forest as well. Hashem puts on some good disguises, called Teva, called nature. But there is godliness all around us. And from Veyaddata Moskva is telling us to know, to look at the bigger picture. Think about it till you realize that you're a godly soul. Your nefesh elokis is who you are. Avram Avinu had 2 sons. Who were they? Yitzchak and Ishmael. Who was older? Ishmael. So who? And Hashem favored the older one or the younger one? The younger one. Yeah. Now, every time we see sibling favoritism, it never comes out. It never ends up well. And
what's ended up well? You got the Jewish people. Can you imagine that Esav would have gotten all the brachas and everything? What the world is about?
But he said, Lu Yishmael Yichel Lefanach. Avram Avinu asked, let Yishmael be a tzaddik and let that be good enough.
That's why there's no guarantee from Yishmael.
Right, because he comes from Elam Atayu, right? And Esav's from Tikkun.
Hashem, one of the Mamar, says that when Abraham said that, he got an aliyah up to a certain point. You can't go past that.
Interesting.
And that's where there's no guarantee.
So then we don't gain it from Yishmael, but we have to. I'm saying he already elevated them. Avram Avinu. Interesting. Usually here in the Zohar it says when Avram Avinu said that, that's when he gave chayes to Yishmael. Because suddenly Yishmael is able. It says for 1400 years. It says in the Zohar that chayes Sarah. Veyaddata. But because Avram said that, he gave chayes to Yishmael, and they were able to rule over Eretz Yisrael for 1400 years. It says even when they rule over Eretz Yisrael, it will be desolate, it won't be settled. Right, but that's here you're saying Pfeffer comes out to be a good shot.
No, just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Not good or not bad, it's just a fact.
Right. But what's that? Yeah, Yishmael was a natural birth. Right. His mother Hagar was young and was born in a natural way. Yishmael, Hashem heard what we were asking for. Yitzchak was called tzchoik, laughter. Laughter is when something unexpected, something great happens, something beyond nature. Avram wanted that Yishmael should be enough, meaning let us live in this world in a way that this world shouldn't be a concealment to Hashem. We shouldn't have to come on to have an idea of Yitzchak finding something exciting. If you're Dovi, pretend you're a king. And you have the whole day, everyone fawning, King Dovi, King Dovi.
Yeah.
You're used to it. Nothing's exciting. One day a bird comes in and he says, hello, King Dovi. Suddenly it's exciting. You smile and you laugh.
Yeah.
Why? It's something unique. So to find Hashem in this world is something unique. But we have to realize we're only tools in the hand of Hashem. So it's already 12:01. I wanted to start reading the Maimer inside.
Interesting because the Zohar says actually 1400 years Ishmael.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because